it. So here's a practical example for you as entrepreneurs. What I discovered early in my early 20s, we had a problem every Friday collecting money for the payroll. Up until very recently, until I was in my mid-50s, I used to get pinpricks on the back of my neck on a Friday afternoon as a conditioned reflex. Do we have enough money in the bank to meet the payroll? This is while I'm at GraceKennedy, you know, so it went deep. What I discovered, if I kept in touch with my bank manager, particularly when things were going well, when things started to go badly, he says, Doug, how can I help? What most people do when things are going well is they say nothing to their bank, and then they rush in there and say, I'm in a crisis, what can you do? And they say, but we don't know anything about you, we don't know how the business has been going. So that's crucial. So here's my advice to you, those of you in business or planning to go into business. Today is Thursday afternoon, tomorrow morning, call your bank manager, say, I want to come and see you. Just say hi, let you know how the business is going. And by the way, I know you're always asking for the accounts. I'm bringing them up to date, and I'm going to bring them to you. Not only audited accounts, carry the in-house accounts to him, because that will build trust. So when you're in a problem now, that bank manager will say, this is the kind of entrepreneur I'm looking to help. In fact, if you are the bank manager, who would you prefer to help? Somebody who you don't see for a year and a half and then rushes in a crisis, or the one who sees you every month and keeps you informed. So that's one reason why our word is so important. Here's another one. Michael Fairbanks is an entrepreneur that I met about 15 years ago. He was in the Peace Corps, worked in Kenya. He wrote a book called Plowing the Seas. He came to Jamaica, and I heard him on radio in the morning. He said it. I said, this is amazing what he just said. And I've always remembered it. He said, people who go late to meetings live in poor countries. I'm going to repeat it. People who go late to meetings live in poor countries. What people say, well, so what? If I start going early to meetings, I'm going to get wealthy? He says, no. But a prerequisite to wealth creation is to be punctual. And you have to say, well, oh, is that all? No, it isn't all, but it's a lot. And the reason for that is because it has to do with our word. When you tell somebody, I told them, I'm going to be here for 3 o'clock for this session, so I came here at 10 minutes to 3. My word is my bond. What happened if I had come at 20 past 3 and I kept all of you waiting? I would be dissing you. And what do you hear more than anything else in Jamaica? Me want respect, them a diss me. So being late is disrespecting our very own people. And it's worse when you do it to your customers. So if you have a quotation, or you agree to meet somebody or fix their leaking pipes at home because you're in the plumbing business, how are you going to build a business to become from a home-based business to a multinational? It is impossible. It cannot be done. So that's the first thing we need to fix, and that's one of the things my parents and my school taught me. So that's a couple practical tips. Now here's another one that I have actually used in that regard. People who know me, and Faye's in the room with me. Faye McIntosh, she was our group CFO when I was here. I always walk around with a little notebook, and I have a list. And I'm always adding to this list of things to do. It is never ending. But every morning I wake up, this list, 20, 30 items, I said there's one thing on this list that's most important that I must do today. And I make sure it gets done. And then I move to the second item. Because remember this, Bill Gates and the man who begged your money on Knutsford Boulevard earlier today have one thing in common: 24 hours in each day. So why is it Bill Gates is one of the wealthiest men in the world and that man isn't? How they have used their time. And that's the same for you and me and everyone. So anybody use a list? Anybody write down what you're going to do tomorrow? Every day. Very good. Excellent. Oh, does it work for you?
Well,
Okay, well. Right, so you make adjustments, but what happens is it relieves it, you have a plan, exactly. Okay, so the next item that I would say has caused me to be able to do what I've done in life is basically what people call a vision has become a popular term now. When I was a youngster, visions were only in the Bible, but now they have, no, it's true. The term, when did you first hear the term having a vision? Only about when we used it to develop the GraceKennedy 2020 vision. It was a very new concept in business. But what I recognize, especially now I've retired, is it's something I'd been doing all my life from I was actually at school, that I had a goal that I wanted to achieve. I didn't know quite how, but I know that's how I went to go. And each of you needs to do that. But then you need to write it down. That's the other thing. You need to write down what your vision is so that you will be able to measure how you're moving ahead. What gets measured gets done. Okay, the next one is, I never realized this until recently. People said, Doug, I've known you a long time, you know. This has only happened since I've retired. I've known you a long time, but you're a very disciplined person, you know. I said, really? I didn't realize that. I thought I was just sort of doing what I usually do. And what I recognized is that from very early, actually in my teenage years, it was instilled on me to do things in an orderly way. And I only recognize now what an advantage that was as I moved through life. And that's something else for you to really consider. And the other thing I realized is that by doing engineering, it actually reinforced that, because to be an engineer, you have to do things in a methodical way. A lot of people say, how come a lot of the folks who are successful in financial services are engineers? That's the reason why, because we bring a certain self-discipline to it. But you can do it in other fields. You don't have to be an engineer. But let's do a little test. So one way of doing it, and you don't have to be an engineer to do it, which brings me to the next item, is what I call the ability to grasp knowledge. From I was a little kid, I remember I always wanted to find out something new. I wanted to read National Geographic from cover to cover. There was no internet, but I wanted to get hold of any material I could and just read. I'd actually read a dictionary just to understand the meanings of words, read the encyclopedia. So one of the things is that thirst for knowledge, insatiable curiosity. And that insatiable curiosity manifests itself in other ways. So for example, I have a habit, and I'd encourage each of you to do it. Anytime I see people lining up in a queue, I stop and ask them what they're lining up for. You know the reason why? Buy lotto? They might be buying lotto. The reason is anybody lining up in a queue means there is an unmet demand that has not been met. By definition. Otherwise there wouldn't be a queue. So there's a demand, an unmet demand to buy lotto tickets quickly. So if you can find a way that you can buy lotto tickets quickly without lining up, you'll become a multimillionaire, which is what they have done, because they've gone online. You can do it on your cell phone and you expand your market that way. But the reason why I say that is because the way to spot opportunity is when you see other people are irritated, upset, their lives are hassled. Because it means if you can give them a solution, they'll pay money for it, and that will answer your question. How do you price? You price based on how much of that hassle you remove for other people. So you work out your cost, and then you set your price. But the price has nothing to do with what your cost is, except to make sure that whatever you're selling it for is more than what you bought it for. So I saw people looking kind of nonplussed about that one. So yes, of course you use scientific methods to do cost accounting, but ultimately prices are set by supply and demand, and it's something you need to recognize and act on accordingly.